"Mommy, do you think God forgot us?" The words hung in the air like a physical weight, pressing down on Jake's chest as he froze in the doorway of his daughter's bedroom. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. 6-year-old Lily clutched her mother's photograph to her small chest, tears streaming down her face in the dim glow of her nightlight. She hadn't heard him approach, and in that unguarded moment, Jake witnessed the raw wound of his daughter's grief, a wound he had been desperately trying to heal with bedtime stories and forced smiles that never quite reached his eyes. If you're moved by stories of resilience and hope in the face of devastating loss, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share more stories that remind us of the strength of the human spirit and the power of love to overcome life's greatest challenges. Jake Matthews hadn't planned on becoming a single father. Nobody does. 8 months ago, his wife Emma had kissed him goodbye as she left for her shift at the hospital, a routine so ordinary that he'd barely looked up from his coffee. That ordinary morning became the dividing line of his life, before and after. A rain-slicked road, a truck driver who'd fallen asleep at the wheel, and the ordinary morning became the day that shattered their world. Now, listening to his daughter's innocent question, a question that cut through all his adult pretenses and exposed the same doubt that kept him awake at night, Jake realized that all his efforts to create a sense of normalcy had failed. Lily wasn't fooled. Children rarely are. "Honey, he started, then stopped when Lily's head jerked up, her expression instantly shifting to embarrassment at being caught in her moment of vulnerability. "Daddy, I didn't know you were there," she said, quickly wiping her tears with the sleeve of her pink unicorn pajamas, the ones Emma had bought her for her last birthday. Jake crossed the room and sat on the edge of her bed, the frame creaking under his weight. Their apartment was small, the furniture second-hand, a far cry from the home they'd owned before medical bills and funeral costs had forced them to downsize. "It's okay to miss Mommy," he said softly, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "I miss her too. Every day." Lily looked down at the photograph, her small finger tracing the outline of her mother's smile. "But that's not what I asked," she said with the direct honesty that only children possess. "I asked if God forgot about us. Because if he remembers us, why are we so sad all the time? Why did he take Mommy? Why did we have to move to this small place? Why can't I have new shoes for school? Did we do something wrong?" The questions tumbled out one after another, each one a knife to Jake's heart. He had been so focused on keeping them afloat, working extra shifts, stretching every dollar, trying to be both mother and father, that he hadn't realized how deeply Lily was processing their changed circumstances, forming her own conclusions about why bad things happen. Jake took a deep breath. He could offer platitudes, the kind adults often give children when they don't have real answers. He could say that God works in mysterious ways or that everything happens for a reason. But looking into his daughter's searching eyes, he knew those empty words would offer no comfort. "I don't think God forgot us, Lily," he said finally. "But I think sometimes I've been so busy trying to fix everything that I forgot something important." "What did you forget, Daddy?" "That we're not alone in this world. That asking for help isn't weakness. That your mom would want us to live, not just survive." He squeezed her small hand. "And starting tomorrow, I'm going to show you that we haven't been forgotten. Not by God, not by the people who care about us, and definitely not by your mom who loved you more than anything in this world." Lily's eyes widened slightly. "How will you show me?" Jake wasn't entirely sure, but he knew one thing: words weren't enough anymore. His daughter needed to see action, needed tangible proof that hope wasn't just something people talked about to make themselves feel better. "I don't have all the answers right now, sweetheart. But I promise you this, I'm going to find them. We're going to find them together." As he tucked her in and kissed her forehead, Jake's mind was already racing. He had been existing in survival mode for months, taking each day as it came, focusing only on keeping their heads above water. But Lily's question had awakened something in him, a determination to do more than just survive. It was time to rebuild, to create a life worth living, to show his daughter that they hadn't been abandoned by God or the universe or whatever forces might be out there. The next morning, Jake woke before his alarm. For the first time since Emma's death, he felt a sense of purpose beyond just making it through another day. He made Lily's favorite breakfast, blueberry pancakes shaped like hearts, and watched her eyes light up with surprise when she came into the kitchen. "Special occasion?" she asked, climbing onto her chair. "Every day with you is special," he replied, setting her plate in front of her. "And today is the first day of our new adventure." "What adventure?" Jake sat across from her with his own plate. "Operation Remember. That's what we're calling it." Lily took a bite of pancake, curiosity replacing the sadness that had become her default expression. "What's Operation Remember?" "It's our mission to remember 3 important things: that we're not forgotten, that we're stronger than we think, and that we can make a difference even when things are hard." After dropping Lily at school, Jake didn't go straight to his job at the auto repair shop. Instead, he drove to the community center he'd passed 100 times but never entered. Inside, he found a bulletin board covered with flyers, support groups, volunteer opportunities, community resources. He took a deep breath and began to read. That evening, Jake and Lily sat at their small kitchen table with a large piece of poster board between them. "This is our Operation Remember map," Jake explained, handing Lily colorful markers. "Every time we do something that helps us remember those 3 important things, we're going to add it to our map." Lily carefully wrote Operation Remember at the top in purple letters, her tongue sticking out slightly in concentration. Jake added their 3 mission statements underneath. "What's our first mission, Daddy?" Lily asked. Jake pointed to a flyer he'd brought home. "Saturday morning, we're going to help serve breakfast at the homeless shelter." Lily's forehead wrinkled. "But we don't have much money. How can we help homeless people?" "We have something more valuable than money, Lil. We have time, and we have hearts that know what it feels like to be sad and scared. Sometimes the best help comes from people who understand what it's like to need help themselves." Saturday morning arrived, and Jake worried that Lily might be overwhelmed by the shelter environment. But his daughter surprised him. She methodically filled water glasses, delivered napkins, and chatted with the shelter residents with an ease that astonished him. "You're doing great, kiddo," he whispered as they worked side by side. "It feels good to help," she replied simply. "That lady told me I have kind eyes like my mommy must have had." Later, as they added homeless shelter breakfast to their Operation Remember map, Lily said, "I think I understand the first part of our mission now, Daddy. When we help others, it's like we're remembering that there are people who need help even more than we do." "That's exactly right," Jake said, his chest swelling with pride. "And what else did you notice?" Lily thought for a moment. "That we can make people smile even when we don't have money. And that makes me feel strong." Over the next few weeks, Jake and Lily threw themselves into Operation Remember. They volunteered at a nursing home, where an elderly woman taught Lily how to knit. They joined a community garden project, planting vegetables in a previously abandoned lot. Jake started attending a single-parent support group where, for the first time, he allowed himself to talk about Emma and the overwhelming responsibility of raising Lily alone. Through a connection at the support group, Jake learned about a program offering subsidized after-school care. This allowed him to pick up more regular hours at the auto shop, gradually easing their financial strain. The community garden provided fresh produce, reducing their grocery bill. Small changes began to accumulate into meaningful improvements in their daily lives. But the most significant change was happening inside both of them. Lily's nightmares became less frequent. She started talking about Emma with smiles mixed with the tears, sharing memories instead of just feeling the absence. And Jake found himself laughing again, genuinely laughing, as they worked on their growing Operation Remember map, which now took up an entire wall in their apartment. 3 months into their mission, disaster struck. Jake's ancient car, essential for getting to work and taking Lily to school, finally gave out completely. The repair costs were far beyond their means, and without transportation, Jake feared he would lose his job. That night, after Lily was asleep, Jake sat on their small balcony, head in his hands. "Emma, I'm trying," he whispered into the night. "But I don't know if I'm strong enough to keep going sometimes." The next morning, he called his boss to explain the situation, expecting the worst. Instead, his boss listened quietly and then said, "Bring Lily to the shop after school. I want to show you something." When they arrived at the auto repair shop that afternoon, Jake was stunned to find several of his coworkers gathered around a used but well-maintained sedan. "We've been noticing all the good you've been doing in the community," his boss explained. "Word gets around, Jake. The guys and I pooled some resources, called in some favors, and found this for you. It's nothing fancy, but it's reliable. Consider it an investment in Operation Remember." Jake was speechless, emotions clogging his throat. Lily had no such restraint. She threw her arms around each mechanic in turn, thanking them with the unabashed enthusiasm only a child can muster. That night, they added the miracle car to their Operation Remember map. "See, Daddy?" Lily said, her eyes shining. "We remembered to help others, and then others remembered to help us." 6 months into Operation Remember, their apartment was still small, Jake still worked long hours, and they still missed Emma with an ache that would never completely disappear. But something fundamental had shifted. They had built a community around themselves, neighbors who exchanged childcare, friends from the support group who understood their struggles, elderly folks from the nursing home who doted on Lily, and community garden members who shared recipes and produce. On a warm Sunday afternoon, they hosted a potluck dinner in the communal courtyard of their apartment complex, something Jake would have found unimaginable just months earlier. As he watched Lily laugh with the children from the building, Jake felt a presence beside him. "She's thriving," said Eleanor, an elderly neighbor who had become something of a surrogate grandmother to Lily. "And so are you, Jake. Emma would be proud." "I still feel lost sometimes," Jake admitted. "Like I'm making it up as I go along." Eleanor chuckled. "That's the secret no one tells you, we're all making it up as we go along. The trick is doing it with an open heart." Later that night, as Jake tucked Lily into bed, she asked for her mother's photograph. She held it carefully, studying Emma's smiling face. "Daddy," she said thoughtfully, "remember when I asked if God forgot us?" Jake nodded, his heart catching. Those words had launched their entire journey. "I don't think that anymore," Lily continued. "I think maybe God was waiting for us to remember something." "What's that, sweetheart?" "That helping people makes you feel less sad. That being brave doesn't mean you're never scared. That family isn't just the people who live in your house." She touched her mother's face in the photograph. "And that mommy isn't really gone as long as we remember how she lived, not just that she died." Jake gathered his daughter into his arms, marveling at the wisdom that somehow flowed from this small person who had experienced so much loss yet found a way to transform it into something beautiful. 1 year after Emma's death, Jake and Lily stood at her grave, placing fresh flowers beside the headstone. They had come a long way from the desperate days of grief that had nearly overwhelmed them. Jake had been promoted at work. Lily was thriving in school. Their apartment now felt like a home, filled with artwork, plants, and photographs, not just of the past, but of their new life and the community they had built. "Do you think Mommy can see our Operation Remember map?" Lily asked as they sat on the grass beside the grave. "I think she can see much more than that," Jake replied. "I think she can see how brave you've been, how kind you've stayed even when it was hard, how you've helped other people find hope." Lily leaned against her father's shoulder. "That's what you did too, Daddy. You answered my question not just with words." "What question, Lil?" "When I asked if God forgot us. You answered with actions. You showed me that we are remembered, that we are loved, that we matter." She picked a dandelion from beside the grave and blew the seeds into the air. And now we're showing other people the same thing. As they walked hand in hand from the cemetery, Jake reflected on the journey that had begun with a heartbreaking question from a grieving child. He hadn't had answers then, not really. Just a desperate determination to prove to his daughter that they hadn't been abandoned by God or the universe. What he couldn't have known was that in trying to answer Lily's question, he would find his own answers. That in reaching out to others, they would be lifted themselves. That in acknowledging their pain instead of hiding from it, they would find healing. That in remembering the deepest values Emma had lived by, compassion, generosity, community, they would keep her alive in the ways that mattered most. Operation Remember had started as a father's attempt to comfort his daughter. It had become a philosophy for living, a reminder that even in our darkest moments, we have the capacity to create light, not just for ourselves but for others walking similar paths. That evening, as they added 1 year remembering to their now sprawling Operation Remember map, Jake felt a sense of peace that had eluded him since the day Emma died. Not because the pain was gone, it would always be part of him, but because he had found a way to carry it that didn't crush him. He had learned that grief and joy could coexist, that brokenness and wholeness weren't opposites but companions on the journey of being human. "Daddy," Lily said as they stepped back to admire their map, "I think we should share Operation Remember with other people who are sad like we were." Jake looked down at his remarkable daughter. "What did you have in mind?" And that was how Operation Remember grew from a private mission between a father and daughter into a community movement. Jake and Lily started a support group for children who had lost parents. They created Operation Remember kits for families facing hard times. They spoke at schools about grief, resilience, and the power of turning outward when pain makes you want to turn inward. 3 years after Emma's death, Jake stood in the community center where his journey had begun, watching as Lily confidently led a group of children in creating their own Operation Remember maps. The room buzzed with conversation, laughter, and occasionally tears as families shared their stories of loss and their journeys toward healing. A woman Jake didn't recognize approached him, eyes glistening. "My son hasn't spoken much since his father died 6 months ago," she said, nodding toward a solemn-faced boy working beside Lily. "This is the first time I've seen him engage with anything. Your daughter is quite remarkable." "She had a good teacher," Jake replied, thinking of Emma and how she had always found ways to turn her nursing skills toward healing not just bodies but spirits. "You both did," the woman said. "Thank you for sharing your story. It helps to know we're not alone." Later that night, after Lily had gone to bed, Jake sat on their balcony looking up at the stars, something he and Emma used to do together. He could almost feel her presence beside him, could almost hear her voice saying what she had often told her patients: healing doesn't mean the damage never existed. It means the damage no longer controls your life. "You were right, Em," he whispered to the night sky. As usual. Inside, Operation Remember had expanded beyond their wall to fill their lives. It wasn't just a map anymore, it was a legacy, a testimony, a way of living that honored Emma by embodying the values she had lived by. Jake didn't have all the answers. He still struggled. He still had days when grief ambushed him with its unexpected intensity. But he had learned that answers often come not in words but in actions. Not in grand gestures but in daily choices to reach out instead of pull away, to give when you feel empty, to hope when doubt feels more reasonable. And on the days when those choices felt impossible, he had Lily, his brilliant, compassionate daughter who had asked a devastating question and then helped him discover that the answer had been within them all along. "Mommy, do you think God forgot us?" No, God hadn't forgotten them. And through Operation Remember, Jake and Lily made sure that others weren't forgotten either. In their broken places, light had found a way to enter. In their darkest moments, they had discovered that the smallest acts of kindness could illuminate paths forward. In their deepest grief, they had found a capacity for joy that was all the more precious for having been hard-won. They had answered the question not with words, but with action. And in doing so, they had written a new story, not one that erased their loss, but one that expanded beyond it, creating meaning from suffering and purpose from pain. It wasn't the story Jake would have chosen. But looking at the stars, feeling Emma's presence in the gentle night breeze, he recognized it as a story worth living, a testimony to the truth that even in our darkest hours, we are not forgotten. We are remembered. We are loved. And with that love, we can remember others and, in so doing, find our way home. Thank you for watching this story of hope and resilience. If you found meaning in Jake and Lily's journey, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that remind us of our shared humanity and the power of love to transform even our deepest pain into purpose. Remember, we heal not by forgetting our wounds, but by using them to help others find their way through the darkness.